Okay, so the National Bus Strategy was published by the government towards the end of March, and to my mind, it was good news because it's not been great over the last year for the bus. So National Bus Strategy, with a forward from Boris himself, was sort of good news for the bus. I think put it in focus and has shown a bit of interest, sort of nationally on what the bus is and the value of the bus. It sort of sets out, it's quite ambitious, it sets out some ambitions for the bus and network improvements. It provides, I think, the hope of some funding. It's not quite clear on what that will be, but I think if there is going to be funding, then authorities and bus operators need to be seen to be working together to make sure they get hold of that funding, and it encourages a sort of collaborative spirit, which to me, it feels like a bit of a fresh start for the bus after a very hard time. So that's in a nutshell what it is. But in the detail of it, I'm sure you'd be sort of wanting to know there are sort of two elements to what government's asking. So there's the bus service improvement plan, which is a document that local authorities have been asked to create in collaboration with operators and other interested parties, and they should have that in place by the end of October this year. And that's a sort of annual plan that sits underneath their local transport plan, sets out what their objectives and ambitions are for public transport, for the bus particularly, and they have to have a delivery plan in place, and that's sort of looked at annually. The second thing is an enhanced partnership, and that's something that local authorities have got to have shown they are willing to enter into with their bus operators. They've got to commit to that by the end of June, and then be working towards developing that enhanced partnership to have it ready for delivering by April next year. So the enhanced partnership has sort of different elements to it. It would require firm commitments from both the local authority and bus operators and other partners to develop improvements for bus services. So there could be a series of facilities. So that might be sort of anything from bus priority measures to measures to do with information, better branding, marketing, better passenger infrastructure, anything really in that way. And then on the other side, local bus operators will be committing to how they're going to improve their service, which could be driver training, it could be better audio-visual announcements on their buses to zero emission vehicles. Anything goes. It's whatever can be agreed between the partners.
Okay, that's really helpful. Thanks, Peter. My second question is community transport excluded from the strategy?
Yeah, good question, because I know there's quite a bit of confusion about this, and I know that one or two community transport schemes have already had a bit of a knockback from local authorities. However, others are being very much encouraged to be part of it. That might come down to a bit of a contradiction within the National Bus Strategy. On one side, the National Bus Strategy specifically refers to community transport being involved in the development of the bus service improvement plans, which I think is spot on, because we're not just talking about bus services, because in rural areas we are talking about community transport provision, we are talking about services that fill the gaps in the bus network, so we can't just look at one without the other. And if there's to be an action plan for improved bus services, it needs to include community transport, it needs to include demand responsive transport, and in some cases maybe taxi provision as well, because that is part of that mix in some areas. So it could be looking at rural provision, feeder services and things. So I think community transport is solidly in there. Also, I think community transport is a great advocate for the communities that they serve. So making sure that the voices of passengers and prospective passengers are heard. So on one hand, the National Bus Strategy very much suggests that and encourages community transport providers to be included by local authorities in the development of the bus service improvement plans. I think where it becomes a bit more unsure of what the position is on the enhanced partnership side of things, because their community transport services are sort of excluded as being providers of eligible services within the enhanced partnership itself. And I suppose in some ways that's good, because they would be free of some of those sort of legal commitments and maybe some onerous things in terms of vehicle quality and other improvements that might be needed. So Section 19 would certainly, providers would certainly be not included in the enhanced partnership. Section 22, because they'd be operating local registered services, they could be included within an enhanced partnership. But at the minute, the current guidance for enhanced partnerships suggests that that would be on a voluntary basis rather than an enforced basis. In any account, we're waiting for new guidance, revised guidance from government, which is promised anytime soon, and I think that might sort of clarify some of these issues a little more. However, my view would be this is an opportunity for anyone involved in passenger transport provision, be they commercial, be they or be they community transport provision. So I would say it is important to be part of the mix and to have your voice heard. So my view would be to sort of speak to local authorities, but I'm just someone saying that from outside local authorities, someone who works with local authorities. Probably the best thing it would be to speak to someone within a local authority. So how about speaking to Phil Lightowler, who's in Kent County Council? I'm sure he'd be happy to advise further.
So Phil, thanks for taking the time to speak to me and helping CTA members understand the bus strategy. Can you tell us who you are and what you do?
I'm Phil Lightowler. I'm Head of Public Transport for Kent County Council, and I look after local bus, community transport, concessionary travel and education transport for Kent. It's a wide remit, quite a lot of activities, but yeah, that's what I do.
Okay, and my first question to you is, what role do local authorities identify for CT in the bus strategy?
I think most local authorities hadn't had advanced sight of the bus strategy, so they're really just catching up. But I think CTA operators can play a role in probably demand responsive or rural feeder services, so filling the gaps in the bus network and improving access to rural communities. That's really where that's going to be the big benefit for CTA operators, and I think a number of local authorities, ours included, are looking at how we can improve access into rural communities. So yeah, demand responsive services and feeder services, those kind of services are really where community transport could be used.
Okay, and what is it that you think that CT operators can do now to help local authorities put their enhanced partnerships in place over the next few months?
If you haven't got a relationship already with your local authorities, public transport team or passenger transport team, make contact now. Get your letter in, or send an email in, and make them aware that you're out there and that you've got the capability to support them, or you're happy to talk to them about what you could do. I think that's the key thing you could do at the moment. Certainly, we've just started a process here where we're contacting lots of bus operators, and we will be speaking to some of our bigger community transport operators. So now is the time. If you've not got the relationship, make contact, make them aware that you're there and that you can help.
Okay, thanks so much, Phil, and I'm sure this will be very helpful for our members.
No problem. Thanks very much indeed.